I titled my talk, Nowadays People Know the Price of Everything and the Value of Nothing. This is actually a quote from Oscar Wilde's novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray. And during that, Wilde's particular character, a fellow by the name of Lord Henry, was complaining about his attempts to bargain during a day of shopping out there. And even though it was actually written in 1891, I think this particularly applies to all of us who are in the pharmaceutical industry now, particularly in our dealings with payers and the idea of what value is versus what our value is. Just want to start this off just with a little story. Our organization, Janssen, which is the pharmaceutical division of Johnson & Johnson, is named after a fellow by the name of Dr. Paul Janssen. Dr. Paul Janssen was an amazing fellow. He actually discovered over 80 different compounds, such wonderful compounds as risperidone and haloperidol for schizophrenia, ketoconazole as an antifungal, loperamide in the area of antidiarrheal, fentanyl for anesthesia products as well. Back in 1986, when I had the opportunity to join Janssen, I had the good fortune of being able to go over to Belgium to visit the facilities over there, and a group of us got to sit down and talk to Dr. Paul. And you know, being a new person to the organization, it took me about 20 minutes to get up the nerve to actually ask a question. Eventually I did. You know, being new to the organization, being a business grad, I decided to ask him a business question. So I asked him, you know, when you're discovering a new compound, do you think of things in terms of the return on investment that it's going to give the organization? I thought it was a great question. Dr. Paul kind of looked at me and went, young man. Now, you know, whenever anybody starts off a question with, or an answer with young man, you know that he thought it was a stupid question. But anyway, he said, young man, you know, when I'm sitting and discovering a brand new compound, I don't think about it in terms of dollars and cents. I don't think about it in the return it's going to give the organization. I think about it in terms of the value that it provides to the patients. The ability to be able to extend a person's life, the value in terms of being able to potentially save a person's life or make their life better. And my hope is that everybody in our organization is going to think the same way about value. That has stuck with me for about the past 30 years or so. But, you know, over the past few years, there's been a real change with regards to what's transpiring. You know, our healthcare system, a lot believe, is actually not sustainable because of the cost of drugs, right? And if you take a look at what's transpiring right across this entire country, you see a number of different things that are going on. You know, you see the health ministers agreeing to tackle drug prices. You see our current Minister of Health, who basically says that drug prices are out of control. You see the conservative leader, formerly the Minister of Health, Rona Ambrose, actually saying that Canadians are getting ripped off with drug prices. And then, of course, you've got the provincial ministers. This one happens to be Terry Lake, that says that drug prices are uncontrollable. This is the rhetoric that's actually going out there. And really, you know, it's creating an awful lot of myths out there in the world. Because what's really being said is that patented medicines are responsible for the increased cost of healthcare. And so here's my first question for everybody. Innovative medicines, and with that I'm talking about patented medicines, can you tell me what they account for as a percentage of the total healthcare spend here in Canada? Great. So 6% is actually the right question. By the way, those questions eat into my time a lot. If you take a look at what the actual percent that patented medicines represent in Canada, it's actually just a little over 6%. If you take that one step further and you actually take it down to the provincial level, and I'll use Ontario as an example, patented medicines actually only represent 3.5% of their total budget. That means there's another 96.5% that even if all patented medicines were given away for free, the government would have to figure out how they're actually going to end up managing. And if you take a look at what's transpired over the past 15 years or so, you can actually see that patented medicines really have had very little impact with regards to any increases in terms of cost. They're the green line at the bottom. It's only increased by 0.5% during that time frame. And you have things such as administration, you have things such as healthcare providers and salary increases, and then you have institutions and capital expenditures, all of which have grown some 13% during that time frame. So the real problem is not patented medicines or innovative medicines. The problem is all the other different parts to the system as a whole. And yet drugs continue to be the key element within that. The other myth that's out there is that innovative medicines are simply a cost to the healthcare system and do not provide any substantial value. And yet, you know, when you take a look at what's transpired over the years, just with regards to medicines, In the last 10 years, from 2000 to 2009, there was about a 2-year increase with regards to our life expectancy. 73% of that, or roughly about 1.5 years, was due just to drugs. If you take a look at cancer treatment, and you go back to 1964, in 1964, 1 out of 3 patients survived beyond 5 years. Today, 2 out of 3 patients are surviving beyond 5 years. Again, primarily due to new innovative medicines coming into the marketplace. HIV/AIDS in the 1990s was a death sentence. Today, it's basically a chronic disease, and somebody who's actually diagnosed at the age of 20 will live a normal life expectancy somewhere into the mid-70s. You go one step further. Hepatitis C is now a curable disease. And because of edgaditis, all the topic is just around pricing, right, and the price of that medication. It's not about the value that it brings or the fact that we've actually cured a disease, but I'll let Ed address that later on. There's numerous studies that have actually been done that take a look at what's transpired from a cost savings with every new medication that you come in. I'm quoting Lichtenberg, where every dollar that's spent for new medications, there's a cost savings of $7 to the healthcare system. But because of the silos within our system, those things don't actually get recognized. Today, there's a significant amount of environmental headwinds that are out there. You know, we've got the Patented Medicines Pricing Review Board that's trying to figure out what they're going to do to somehow control patented medicines cost. We have the Pan-Canadian Pharmaceutical, or as I like to call it, Pricing Alliance, that's taking a look at how they can lower prices. We've got National Pharmacare as a discussion point. Again, if it's purely about trying to save costs, I'd argue that PCPA is already doing that. Private payers are also talking about the high cost of drugs, even though they make money off of our drugs as it goes forward. And then we have subsequent entry biologics or biosimilars in the marketplace. And the fact that there's guidelines being put out to place that basically it's not an issue with regards to what the price of the product is, but just that biosimilars are the preferred products in terms of the way that payers are looking at things. The question really becomes, as we go forward, where is that value that Dr. Paul talked about way back when? I'm going to skip the question in the interest of time. But you know, if you take a look at the system in the terms of the things that we're facing, you know, there's a number of different elements that are there. There's this therapeutic substitution or non-medicinal switching. You know, forcing patients that are stable on their current medication to switch to another medication just simply because it's cheaper goes against our key healthcare values, our desire for patient outcomes and positive patient outcomes, and this whole need for healthcare sustainability as it goes forward. It's as if people believe that there should be only one drug that treats all diseases. Secondly, you know, if you take a look at the focus on cost containment and ignoring the value of innovative medicines, you know, to simply assume that medicines are too expensive really misses the whole point with regards to the value that they end up bringing. And obviously, if we're trying to figure out how we're going to help healthcare sustainability, we need to figure out other ways for us to be able to save costs within the system, which is something that innovative medicines do. Affordability does not equal value. And then finally, you know, reducing patient and healthcare professional choice. The first 2 points really do kind of address that. But it's not that there's one size that fits all. You know, it's really all about that we should have the ability to have the right medicine at the right time for the right patient, every time that a physician or that patient ends up making that decision as they end up moving forward. So, you know, what does it mean? What do we have to do as we end up moving forward? Well, you know, there's a number of different elements. I mean, first off, we as an industry have to do a much better job of boldly describing exactly what our medicines do and the value that they bring to the system. We don't do that very well. I think there's great opportunities as we move forward, similar to what Ronnie talked about with regards to data and what has to be put into place. We need to think much longer term. We can't be just thinking short term and looking for commercial wins. We have to think about how we can continue to be part of that system to be able to improve the healthcare system as a whole. We have to understand that today's decisions that we're making have an impact farther out. Not listing innovative medicines has an impact with regards to cost savings. And then lastly, I'd say that collaboration is key, and that we have to be able to partner with all stakeholders within the entire system in order to be able to improve patient outcomes, but also to assist with regards to healthcare sustainability. And I believe that if we're able to do all of those elements, we'll get back to what Dr. Paul's vision was of value to the marketplace as well. Thanks very much.